Good morning, friends. Happy Thursday. Woot woot, the sun is shining here. Now, mind you, it's still in the 20s. I think it's 29 out there, but we have sunshine, which is so exciting for me. Hey, Hannah, good morning. Thank you so much for the heart me. Gen X, good morning. Welcome in, everybody. Today, we're going to be making a beanie. Look at this cute little beanie. I fell in love with this colorway. Our friend Shan, you guys know Shan on here, she made a sweater with this colorway. And when I saw her sweater, I was like, oh my gosh, that is gorgeous. And so I had to get some of this yarn. This is Premier Puzzle in the colorway Kickball, but isn't it pretty? Pretty, pretty yarn. This is where I joined up with my hat, so you can kind of see the seam there, but really pretty. It's a bulky weight yarn. I think is it a 5 bulky? Hang on, let me look. Yep, it's a 5 bulky. And it calls for what does it call for? It calls for a J10. That is what I am using, a J10. Good morning, Debbie. Little Red, good morning. Kimberly, thank you so much for the finger hearts. Julie, good morning. I knew it was Premiere because of your live. Yeah, I like me some Premiere yarn. Miss Mary, good morning. Kimberly, thank you so much for the heart me. Mama Wheeler in the house. Welcome in, friends. Who's ready to make a beanie? It's beanie season out there. We're at 29 degrees this morning. The deer just passed through the pasture. I saw them a little bit ago. Anywho, we're going to make another one. I have more of this yarn, so I wanted to make another hat. And it's been a while since I made a hat, so I thought, well, let's get on here and let's talk through how to make a hat. This is a very easy beanie that I do. It's one of my favorites. You can make it with the brim or without the brim. And I like to do it in a size like medium to largish. It does have some stretch to it, so it'll go pretty big. But I pretty much kind of make it for a large size adult. So the first thing that I do when I'm making my beanies, if you're looking to make one of these, I go online and I just looked for a beanie size chart. Okay. So then it has all of the different sizes. And then it tells you like the head circumference. The circumference is this part right here around the base of your hat. And so that's kind of what I go by. Queen 530, I'm on TikTok today. I'm over here. You'll look again because I am live. We've got a number of people watching here this morning on TikTok. So you have your head circumference. So that tells you how big around you're going to make this. And then it tells you the starting chain. Now, my starting chain is different. So I kind of ignore that because it depends on the size of the yarn you're using. So we'll talk about that. And then it tells stitches and rows. But the important part for me is this size right here. And so get you one of those. That's very handy to have. Now, I've made enough of these, I don't even really need to reference my size chart. So when I make my beanies, I make them so that this circumference right here is 20 inches. However, with that being said, they do have some stretch, so they'll actually stretch larger than 20. What I have found is if I make this like 22, like it calls for, then what happens is it's a little too big. And so I really like to do my circumference for an adult large, 20 inches, and then have that stretch to it. And the other thing that I like to do when I'm doing a beanie with a brim, I measure my chain, my starting chain, and we're going to be crocheting long ways like this back and forth. I know from the top of my beanie to the brim, I need 9 inches. Okay. So from here to here, I try to make my chain 9 inches. So if I don't want a brim on it, that would be my starting chain. Now, if I do want the brim, I typically do my brim about 2 inches. And this way, they don't have to do it with a brim. They can make it kind of a slouchy beanie. So it's kind of a twofer. But I essentially will do it 11 inches. So that's what we're going to start with this morning. All right. So let's stop yapping here and let's get to making another beanie. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a starting chain. Very important. Leave yourself a long tail when you're doing this because we're going to use this tail to close in the top of our beanie. Okay, so kind of envision like, I don't know, 12 inches or so. Give yourself enough room there to be able to sew your top of your hat closed. And I'm going to start with a slip knot on my hook. So however you do that. And then I'm going to start chaining. And once again, I'm going to do the adult large. Now, I don't fuss around with counting these stitches, guys. What I like to do is I just like to measure how big this starting chain is going to be. And at this point is when I decide, okay, do I want to make this with a brim or without a brim? And I typically will make them with a brim. I just kind of like the look of the brim. So I'm going to just do my chains here, and I'm going to chain until we get to 11 inches. So periodically, what I will do is I'll just lay down my chain and I'll get my tape measure here and I'll just kind of get a measurement of my chain. Now, I measure this as it's kind of loose. I don't do a stretch on this. So right now I'm at 9 inches. So if I didn't want to do a brim, I would pretty much stop now. But we do want a brim. So we're going to chain just a few more chains. And we're going to try to get it to 11 inches. Again, it doesn't have to be an exact science on this, guys. Ammo, stop whining, buddy. What is your deal? You're being annoying. Okay, so I think I'm close here. Okay, so now we're at 11 inches. Okay, so that is how I do my chain. Now, if you're going to make a kid size, you'll need to know how tall to make this chain. This chain is from the top of our hat to the very base, in this case, the brim. Okay, so clearly, if you're going to do a hat for a kid, this distance from top to bottom is going to be different. That's why you've got to go find one of the size charts. There's tons of them out there. Okay, so after we have our chains, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working my half double crochets now. Let me get untangled here so we can actually start doing these. Okay. And as you look at your chain, what I like to do is I like to work in the, yes, midnight. This will be on my YT later. We're live this morning, friends, on both YT and on TikTok. So you'll be able to watch the replay for sure. And it looks like my YT phone is kind of slippy. Let me adjust here real quick. Okay, that's better. It was falling out of its holster there. Okay. So I'm going to start and I'm going to do half double crochets. The whole hat I'm going to make with half doubles. And when I'm going to move along this chain, instead of working in the top of the chain here where you have your sideways V, I'm going to work my stitches into this back bump along the chain. So I'm going to yarn over. I skip this first stitch and I go into the back bump of the second stitch. And I make my half double. And I'm going to keep making the half doubles all the way up this chain. Now, if you want, you can put in a stitch marker right here at the beginning as kind of a reminder of where you started this, okay? So you can pop that in there and that'll help you identify where you're starting at. So here we go. Let's do a bunch of half doubles. This will give me some time to kind of catch up on the comments and kind of recap. But good morning. Welcome in, everybody. Hope everybody is having a fabulous Thursday. This morning, we're making a little beanie. So we're kind of just getting started here. Tara said she made a scarf with the same yarn. Awesome. Isn't it pretty? This yarn, y'all, is called Kickball. It's Premier Puzzle. Okay, Fernaz, good morning. Welcome in. Hi, do you mean the fold when you say the brim? Yes, the brim. I call it the brim right here. The fold. I guess I don't know what else I would call it, but this is what I consider the brim or where I fold it up. So I made a chain of 11 inches here with the fold from top to bottom here. My hat works out to be about 9 inches. Midnight Dawn, you do not have to use a certain type of yarn. This morning I'm using a 5 bulky weight. I do like a 5 bulky for my hats. It just works up a little quicker, so I do really enjoy that. But this yarn is really pretty. This is in the colorway Kickball, and it's Premier Puzzle. Why Not says, I love that yarn. I made a blanket out of it. Yeah, it's really pretty yarn. Bar said, I've used that in hats and blankets. It is a great yarn, y'all. It's really fun. It's a variegated yarn, so you can kind of see it's going to change as we go along. Bloom, thank you so much for the follow. Preacher Lady said, I finished the cow scarf last night. Well, congratulations. How exciting. Rachel A. Crochets in the house. Rachel, thank you for the donut. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope y'all are having a great day. So, right now, guys, I'm just doing half doubles and I'm working in that back bump. I'm going to work all the way up this chain until I get to the very last 5 stitches. Victoria, good morning. Tony Ann, welcome in. Good morning, everybody. Um, this hat is going to be for adult. And I did 11. Oh, I didn't count it. I don't know how many. I measured 11 inches. We can count it at the end and see how many I have. I didn't even count. This yarn is called Premier Puzzle in a colorway Kickball. It is a 5 bulky weight, and I am using a size J10 hook. Oh, thank you so much for the heart hand. Slim, thank you. Heart signal. How Michael said you did 36. Michael was keeping count. Well, thank you. I'm going to trust that. It usually works out to be around 36. Miss Hannah. Spicy Hannah's in the chat. I'm not going to read that comment, Miss Hannah. This is a real 11 inches, though. I will tell you that. Hello, my love, said Gorgeous. Welcome in. Good morning. Jen, thank you so much for posting over on YT. I appreciate that. Does the front loop of the ribbed effect as well? Yeah, I'm doing. We're going to go into the next stitch, but you can see this little like ribbing. This is going to be very easy to create. One of the stitches I do in the front loop, and one of them I just do regular. So we'll just keep crocheting along here. When I turn my work, you're going to start to see that little ribbing come into play. But it's very easy to get that ribbed look as we're doing it. So once again, this is half doubles, half doubles. I know. Hey, JT, good morning. Stacy Blondie, good morning. Hey, Miss Paloma, welcome in. Mama, good morning. I know y'all are chuckling at Miss Hannah. She's a spicy one. You got to watch out for Miss Hannah. Pegleg, good morning. Welcome in. Thank you so much for the follows. Chris says I usually do the back loops. Yeah, I'm going to do the front loop, and I'll show you kind of the reason why. I did set myself up for that, Miss Hannah. So there is that. I love a fun group in the morning. Okay, we're going to wait until we get to the last 5 stitches here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As I'm doing the last 5 stitches, this is going to be the very top of my hat. And so what I like to do is I like to graduate these stitches and make them a little smaller. So for the last 5, instead of doing a half double, I'm going to do a single crochet for those last 5 stitches. I'm still working into that back loop of that chain. Okay, so there's 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so we have finished up our chain. We have it graduated smaller here. This small part at the top of our hat, the reason why I like to do this, you can kind of see how this is smaller through here. When we go to close up the top of our hat, because I'm doing single crochets, it makes it so that the hat is not so bulky here at the very top. Some people like to do only 3, some people like to do 7. 5 is kind of my magic number. Again, you don't have to do it at all. You can continue doing your half doubles. But if you have not tried going down to a single for those last stitches, you might want to give it a try because it does make this kind of close up and taper in a little better and not be so bulky at the top. So it's just kind of a cool little trick. Okay. All right. So now we are ready to turn our work. For this next, I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn my work. Now, for the very first stitch out, this chain does not count. I always go under the front and back loop for both of these stitches. I like it to be very strong here at the top. So I'm just going to do a single crochet and I go under both loops. Now what I'm going to do, we have those 4 additional stitches right here where we had our single crochets. Instead of going in both the front and the back loop, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into this front loop only for this entire row as we work down. And I'm going to do single crochets for the first 4. Okay, so single crochet, I slide under just that front loop and do my single crochet. And here is number 3 and 4. So we have a total of 5 single crochets right here out of the gate. Okay. The reason why I like to do in the front loop is if we turn our work, do you see this little line of texture that formed here? As we continue to work down, you're going to see that line of texture, and that is right through here. So that little stitch right there is created because we're going just in the front loop. Now I'm going to continue on and I'm going to work with my half doubles. And once again, I'm going to continue working just in that loop that is facing me. So I yarn over, go under that front loop, and make my half doubles. And we're going to work that all the way down. Half doubles. Wendy, thank you so much for the follow. Jen, welcome in. Thank you so much for the follow. Christian, thank you for sharing the live. Appreciate you being here last night. Michael said, those singles make all the difference in the world. I just did it last night for the first time. It really does. When I first started learning to make beanies, I didn't do those tapered stitches or those single crochets at the top of my hat. And it just always felt so bulky, and I don't know, I just felt like it didn't look as pretty, I guess. And let's face it, I mean, we want all of our crochet work to be kind of pretty, right? That's why we do it. Functional and pretty. So doing those single crochets really was a game changer for me. Good morning. Yes, we are making a beanie this morning. Juju, good morning. Welcome in. Um, let's see. Pancha, Doreen, Sea Dream, Carmen, Just Julie, and welcome in. Thank you so much for the follows. We are making a beanie this morning, guys. I'm using a 5 bulky weight yarn and a J10 hook. What is that? A 6 millimeter? 6 millimeter crochet hook. And we are making all half doubles right now. And this is kind of my go-to beanie. I'm going to be making a lot of beanies for donation. And so this morning I thought we would just kind of work on one and kind of show you guys the basics of how I get this started. We probably won't have enough time to finish the entire beanie on the live, but don't worry, we'll be working on more beanies next week as well. So, hey Susan, good morning. I am working a half double crochet and I'm actually technically working in the front loop. So as you're looking at your stitches, these are the top of my stitches. See how this is a sideways V? So this loop that sits closest to me, this is called the front loop. This loop that is away from me is called the back loop. And what I'm doing is I'm working in that front loop only with a half double. So I yarn over, I go under just that front stitch, and then I do my half double crochet. And what that is doing on the other side of our work is it's giving us this little line of texture here. So this that is showing is that back loop. It's a very subtle way to kind of get some texture on your beanie with very little effort. I started with a starting chain that was 11 inches. I like my beanies to be about 9 inches for an adult. That's what size we're making. So here we are. We're almost to the end. This is actually my last stitch here. So I have 2 more. When I get to the very last stitch, guys, I will go under both loops. So as we look at this, this is our front loop. This is our back loop. I'm actually going to work this under both loops. This way it just makes it a little more stable. How many hats can you get for one skein? Well, this skein I'm working with right now, Fernaz, was the hat. I made this hat from it. So we're going to see if it's enough to do 2 hats. At this point, I do not know for sure, but I do have another full skein. So if not, I have another backup, but I'm hoping to get 2 out of it. Fingers crossed, right? Paloma, thank you so much for the finger hearts. Okay, so we have finished our last stitch and I went under both the front and back loop. Now I'm ready to turn my work again, okay? This is actually the back of our work. So as I turn this, I'm going to mark what is the front of my hat. I'm going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work. Now, as we are turning, The first thing you'll notice is we have this line of texture. This is from the third loop of the half doubles. For those that were here on the live yesterday, we talked a lot about that magical third loop. If we turn our work up, you can see here is the top of our crochet stitches. So this right here, that line that you're seeing, is from the third loop. So as I'm working this next row, I'm actually going to be working under both the front and back loop. And all I'm going to do is let this stitch that we made give it that line of texture. So as we look at our example here, this is what we got from the first row that we did with going in the back, or excuse me, going in the front loop. That's the back loop that's showing. This line of texture right here, this is from that magical third loop of our half doubles that we did. Okay. So this chain that I made does not count as a stitch. I'm going to start working into these next stitches. So this one here, I'm going to make a half double. And once again, we're going to go under both those loops, front and back. So this row, I don't have to worry about that front or back going in just one. I'm going under both with my half double. Now, as I get going here, one thing I'm going to want to do, especially if you're new to crochet, is you're going to want to mark your first stitch. This right here is that turning chain. This is that top of that first stitch that we made. So get yourself a stitch marker. If you don't have a stitch marker, use an earring, a twist tie, another piece of yarn, a bread tie, whatever you've got hanging around, a bobby pin, anything will work. Doesn't have to be fancy, okay? And identify that first stitch. But as you can see, as we're doing this, see how that line of texture now is showing? It's very subtle. So this isn't a real like vibrant rose, but you get that fun texture as you're doing it just by doing these stitches, okay? So here we go. Let's carry on. We're just doing half doubles and we're going under the front and back loop. Very, very easy. So as I get a few more stitches here, one of the things I like to do, because I do get myself kind of confused sometimes, I have to identify what is the front and what is the back of my beanie. I want the front of my beanie, the outside, to have these lines of texture. Okay, you can kind of see them forming there. So what I'll do is I'll get my hook minder. This also, you could use a stitch marker, you could use a piece of yarn, something to identify what's that front. In this case, I'm using a J hook. I'm going to clip this little guy right on here as a reminder. This is the front of my beanie. Okay, and we're going to keep going all the way up until we get to those very last 5 stitches. Is that turning chain going to be counted as my first stitch after I turn my work? No, it is not. The turning chain does not count as your first stitch. So I just do it to help kind of get my work turned. Now, some people don't like to use a turning chain. You do not have to if you're doing a beanie. It certainly is not required. So if you don't like using a turning chain, by all means, just skip past that and just start working right into your first stitch. Okay, but definitely optional. Did you start with a single crochet base row or did you start straight from half double to the chain? So I'm kind of an old school gal, Erin, and I chained. Okay, I chained 11 inches for my beanie. So I chained from here to here. Then I worked a single crochet, or excuse me, I worked the half double right into that chain. So no single crochet. Okay. Um, Let me catch up on these comments, guys, here real quick. I'm not sure I'm going to catch them all. Guys, we have a very active chat this morning. Hats are always very popular as I work on these. We have an incredible group of moderators who help answer the questions about the yarn and things that I'm doing. So I really appreciate them being here. So if you see them pinning, definitely take heed of what they're noting. Heather, thank you so much for sharing the live. Doodles, welcome in. Thank you so much for the follow. Eva Kirby, welcome. Pulak, Mulaka, The Weight of Air, and Michelle Marie. Welcome in, friends. Welcome in. So glad to have you here. Thank you all so much for the follows. This morning, guys, we're working on a beanie, okay? And we're using a 5 bulky weight yarn. And I'm using a size J6, or excuse me, J10, a 6 millimeter hook. And we're just kind of working this back and forth. Okay, as we work along, when I get to these last 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, instead of working half double, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work a single crochet. I'm still going to go under both loops here of my for my singles. So under both the front and back loop, there's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so this is the very top of our hat. And what I'm trying to accomplish here is by changing down to single crochets for these last 5 stitches, we are trying to shrink the top of our hat so that when we go to close it up, it will not be so bulky as we finish the top of our hat. So this right here is where those 5 single crochets are. Leah, that's a great question about the yarn under. Give me just 1 second. Let me turn the corner here and then I will answer your question about that. Okay. So as we get our last stitch, we're now ready to turn our work. I'm going to chain 1. This chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So now I'm going to turn my work and we're going to start working back the other direction. Now, for this stitch, what we're going to do is we're going to be working in the front loop only, and I'm going to be working that all the way down. For the first 5 stitches, we're going to be doing single crochets. Again, we want this to be smaller here at the top of our hat. So this is our turning chain here, does not count as a stitch. For the first stitch, I'm going to go under both the front and back loop. This helps it be a little more stable at the very top of our hat so that when we go to close it, it won't be so loose there. It'll be a little tighter. So single crochet in our first stitch. Now, once again, if you're new to crochet, this is a great opportunity to get one of your stitch markers and identify that first stitch. A lot of people, when they're first starting out making beanies, and myself included, if you go back on YT and watch my very original beanie video where I really struggled making beanies, I kind of talk through a lot of my struggles and woes with keeping my stitch counts accurate. So this is very important if you're a new crocheter. Identify that first stitch. Now, we have 4 more of the single crochets. And for these, I'm going to work in the front loop only. Okay, so as we look at our crochet stitches, it's a little harder to see with this variegated yarn, but it kind of looks like a sideways V. This stitch that is closest to me here, this is called the front loop. This stitch that is away from us is called the back loop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work in this front loop that is facing me. And the reason why I'm doing that is I want to give a line of texture that's left behind from that back loop. Okay. So here we go, single crochet into that front loop only. And we're going to do this 4 times so that we have a total of 5 single crochets. Okay, so there was our first one, 4 additional. You can kind of see that line of texture starting to form now as we work along. So as we get those done, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work our half double crochets all the way down. And once again, these stitches are a little easier to see. As you're looking at your sideways V, I'm only going to work it under this front loop. That will leave this one behind, giving it that row of texture. So here we go, half doubles all the way in the front loop. So I'm sorry, I don't remember who asked me about doing a yarn over versus a yarn under. Friends, if you are new to the channel, I have been crocheting for 40 years. And when I first learned to crochet, there weren't any, there was no internet or tutorials or videos or stuff like that. I learned to crochet from my mom and my grandma. So what I'd like to say is it's all my mom's fault. No, I'm totally kidding. I'm kidding, Mom. Mom's over there rolling her eyes at me. If you don't know, Mama Wheeler, who's in the chat, guys, that's my mom. That's who taught me to crochet. So the reason I do it is not because of my mom. But when I make my stitches, what they're referring to and what they're asking is as I go under my front loop here, technically what you should do is turn your hook here and you make your yarn go over the top of your hook. That is called a yarn over. And then you pull your yarn up and you complete your stitch with a yarn over. And some people who are savvy crocheters will notice that I do a yarn under. So kudos to you, number one, for noticing. What I found as I was crocheting without any guidelines back in the day, when I would go under, what I would do is I would push my hook forward like this, and I would pull my yarn this way. If I dissect this stitch, what I am doing, if I turn it, you will see that that yarn is actually coming underneath my hook. And so that technically is called a yarn under. A lot of amigurumi creators will do yarn under instead of yarn over. It makes a little tighter of a stitch. And so anyhow, I basically got lazy with my crochet, y'all. And I just pull this through and then I yarn over and pull through all three. So again, I just kind of go through and push my hook and grab that. It just makes me more efficient, but it's clearly a yarn under. I will make the argument that it does not matter if you do a yarn over or a yarn under. However, what I would caution you is make sure you do it consistently every time. You don't want to mix and match and do it differently because then your stitches will not look consistent. So my work looks very consistent as I do it, but yes, I do a yarn under. I'm a bit of a crochet rebel, y'all. Some of you may have heard. So, anyhow, that is the story. I hope that helps to explain why I do my yarn under. And it really doesn't make a big difference. So, we're just going to keep working this all the way down. Now, as I'm working this, because I'm working under just the front loop, what you'll see is we have that little line of texture forming right there because we left that back loop off. And so it just automatically is giving it a little texture with very little effort. So we'll keep working this all the way down, half double in the front loop, and then we'll be ready to turn our work and start working back the other direction. Amy, thank you so much for the follow. Prevailing Beauty, thank you for the follow. Welcome in, new friends. If you are new to the channel here, we've got the jokes this morning. It's a Thursday. Thursday is my favorite day to come live, y'all. I don't know what it is about Thursday. I guess it's because we're one step closer to the weekend, y'all. I hit my stride, I get my groove by Thursday. So there is that. But this morning we're making a little beanie. If you are new, my name is April. I'm a hobby crocheter. I come live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings at 7:30 Central Time. And I do a variety of different projects. This morning we're working on a beanie. I like to make baby blankets for donation and all sorts of, I make wheelchair blankets, all sorts of stuff. So anyhow, I don't SELL my stuff. I just give to charity and whatnot. So these hats will be for donation. Okay, so here we are. We're to our last stitch. And you can see that easily because we put in our stitch marker like a good girl I was this morning. So let's pop that out. Now, when I get to the last stitch, what I like to do is I like to work my half double under both the front and back loop. I just feel like that adds a little stability to that edge of my hat. So I'm going to work under both. So that's the one exception there, to work under both when I get to that brim. So now we are ready to turn our work. So what we're going to do now is we're going to chain one. This chain one does not count as a stitch. Also, this chain one is completely optional. A lot of people don't like to do a chain one for their beanies. That's totally fine. Completely optional. Now I'm going to turn my work. This is the front of my work. You can see because we put our little stitch marker there, our hook minder, that quickly helps me identify, aha, I'm on the right track. Look at all the fun texture on my hat. Okay. So now as we start to work back up, we're going to work half doubles all the way up until we get to the very last 5 stitches. Once again, these will be single crochets. Now, as I turn my work, because we were doing half doubles, you can see this little line of texture right here. This is formed from doing the half double crochets. This is that magical third loop that we all love. Okay. So I'm going to let this be that line of texture. You can see another one here. And this time I can turn my work. I'm going to work under both the front and back loop since we have this to be our line of texture. So again, that chain one does not count. So now I'm going to go into this first stitch and I'm going to work for this one under the front and back loop with my half double. So I yarn over and I'm going to do my half double crochet. Okay, now very important, put back in your stitch marker. One of the hardest things when you're first learning beanies is keeping your stitch count right. So these stitch markers, if you don't have a fancy one, use a bobby pin, use a paper clip, use a bread tie, use a piece of yarn, whatever you've got laying around, doesn't have to be fancy. Use an earring. If you got a hoop earring laying around, clip that little guy on there. Okay, that tells me that is my first stitch. So that chain that we made is sitting right here, and that doesn't count. Okay. So now we're going to work back up our beanie. And because we have this line of texture here, I'm going to go ahead and work under both the front and back loop. And we're just going to do half doubles all the way back up. Easy peasy for this round. We don't even have to worry about working in only one loop. So simple. And you can see how that is giving it that texture there. See that for me? Slick, pretty slick, I tell you. Raymond and Jean, welcome in. Thank you so much for the follows, friends. Let's see here. Yeah, I am live this morning, guys. If you're new to the channel, I'm live on TikTok and over on YT. We have people watching over there as well. So both platforms. And then what happens is I save these videos. Because I work full time, guys, I was getting so many questions from going live on, well, how did you do that? Can you make a video? And y'all know if you work full time, it's really hard to make like tutorials and content. So the compromise that we came up with is I will go live on both platforms and then I publish out the replay of the live that we did. So it's not like a formal tutorial, but if you want to see how I made this beanie, if you missed from the very beginning, you can go over to YT and you can watch over there how I did it. And my handle over there is the same, Wheeler 8 Acres. Wheeler 8 Acres is our nickname, guys. My husband is a big off-roader. He likes big trucks and mudding, and he's got quads and he's got a little Ranger. He does all those things. So Wheeler's actually my husband's nickname. But by default, I'm Mrs. Wheeler, and we have 8 acres here in Alabama. When I first started coming on TikTok, I was posting lots of videos of my birds and deer and wildlife and stuff. And then I kind of got more into my crocheting, but the name kind of stuck. So my name is April. If you are new here, and we're very glad to have all of our new friends here. We have a fabulous little group that comes in on the mornings and watches me crochet live. So really, really fun place to hang out, have your coffee, do a lot of, stitch talk and whatnot. I do a lot of teaching of stitches as well. You're Wheeler, he's Mr. Wheeler. There you go. I'm the Wheeler now. I am doing a yarn under Amber. That is just the way I've crocheted. I have crocheted for 40 years. So there's no difference. If you are a yarn over person, definitely, continue to do a yarn over. That's just my little rebel coming through. The YT guys is Wheeler 8 Acres, same thing, okay? And we have our I live stream our bird feeder 24 hours and also our deer camera, our pasture over on YT if you're interested in watching wildlife. Okay, so here we are, guys. We're to the very last part of we're getting up to the top of our hat here. So our last 5 stitches are single crochets. And so what we're going to do is we're going to work additional 5 single crochets, one in each. The reason I'm working a single crochet at the top of our hat is when we go to close in our beanie, what happens if you reduce down to single crochet, some people will even do slip stitches here through the top. I will tell you the slip stitch, I get confused on my counts. I do much better with a single crochet, but some people will do a slip stitch. The whole goal, guys, is we're narrowing the top of our hat. So when we go to close this up, you don't have so much bulk here at the top of your hat. That's why we're making the smaller stitches. So we do half doubles all through here, and then we do single crochets at the top. Mia says I do a slip stitch. I get myself really confused, Mia, with the slip stitch. I've tried. So I just stick with the single crochet. But if you are comfortable doing a slip stitch, your hat would be even more narrow. Now I do 5 single crochets here. Some people only do 3. Some people like to do 7. So definitely adjust however you prefer with this. There's no rules on this. There's no hard fast, you got to do this. This is just what I do, okay? So, here we go. We're going to do our single crochets and the 5 one in each stitch until we get to that very last stitch, okay? So here we go. This is our last stitch. We cleverly marked it with our little stitch marker. Let's pop that guy out. We know we're now to the end of our hat. Okay, so there we are. Now we're ready to turn our work. The mods have pinned what yarn we're using today. Guys, we are using Premier Puzzle. This is a 5 bulky weight yarn. I'm using a J10, a 6 millimeter hook. This hat from top to bottom is 11 inches. That's the size I like to make for my adult hats. But go online, guys. There's thousands of these size guides. Just put in crochet beanie sizes and you can get your chart so that way you can figure out what size you want to make. I'm making like an adult medium to large-ish. So I made it 11 inches. This will have a brim that folds up here at the bottom. And so from here to here will end up being 9 inches. I typically allow about 2 inches here for my brim. Okay. So let's get ready to turn our work now. So we're going to chain 1. This chain 1 does not count as a stitch. Okay, I'm going to turn my work and now we are on the back of our work. So again, I marked the front so I know where all my texture needs to be. Now we're going to start working these 5 single crochets. So this here was my turning chain that I just made. Again, does not count. This stitch right here is the first stitch. For the first stitch, I'm going to do a single crochet and I go under both the front and back loop. And the reason why is I want this to be very sturdy at the top of my hat for when I go to sew it together. Okay, so there is my first stitch. Put back in your hook minder, your stitch marker, so that you know where your first stitch was. Okay, this that you see right here, this little bump, that is the turning chain. This right here is actually the top of that stitch. Okay, so that's our very first stitch out. Now, as we are looking at this, what we want to do is we want to create another line of texture like we did for this row. So as we look at the top of our stitches, it looks like a sideways V. This part of our stitch that faces towards me is called the front loop. Hey, Debbie, good morning. This loop that is away from us is called the back loop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work my stitches under this front loop only. And what happens is it will leave behind that back loop. This that you see right here, that little line of texture, it's kind of hard to see with the variegated yarn. Hopefully y'all can see that. That is going to be left behind as we make these stitches. Okay, so for the next 4 stitches, we're going to do our single crochets and I'm going to work just under that front loop. So I slide under just the one and leave the other behind and make my single crochets. And I count a total of 4 of these with my original first stitch here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are my 5 single crochets. You can see right here, see that line of texture that's already forming? That's what we're looking to achieve on this. Okay, so now we're going to start working and we're going to work our half doubles all the way down our work. Okay, so again, half double, working only in that front loop. And you'll start to see that texture form even more. So half doubles all the way down the rest of the beanie. Guys, this yarn that I'm using today is Premier Puzzle Yarn. It is in the colorway Kickball. It is a variegated yarn. It's really pretty. It's a 5 bulky weight. I'm using a J10, a 6 millimeter crochet hook, and we're working on a beanie this morning. So as I turn this, see this right here? That is the back loop that we left behind. So automatically it's creating that line of texture for us. Will a beanie still work if it's double crochet the entire length? Yes, it absolutely will. You do not have to do a half double. I just like doing the half double because of how the texture looks. Let's see. I'm on a beanie kick right now with my second beanie. Nice, nice, Debbie. This is a very easy beanie. This is my go-to beanie, guys. Variegated means that the yarn is like different colors. See how it's got different colors in the hat? That's what variegated means. So it just automatically changes colors like that. We're kind of on the orange color, but the yarn is going to be changing here in a little bit. We'll get to some of these other colors. We'll probably be off the live by the time that happens. We only have another 15 minutes here. But anyhow, welcome in, everybody. So glad to have you all here. So just keep working this half double all the way down the side of your beanie. We're going to work on beanies again next week, guys. Probably on Tuesday, we'll work on some more beanies. The part that we're going to work on next week is how we close it up and get this part sewn up when we get our two halves. So my goal right now is I'm going to keep making these rows back and forth, turning my work, and I'm going to go until I get it to the size that I want for the width that I need. I'm making an adult beanie. So that for me works out to be about 20 inches. And then as it'll have some stretch to it also, so it can be actually used for larger heads as well. But the kind of my size that I like to go for is about 20 inches. So if you look at your hat from here to here, it's hard to see on the screen, here to here on each side, right? This is about 10 inches. But the what I mean by 20 inches, the entire circumference all the way around is 20 inches. Okay. And that's about the size we need for an adult large or medium, but it also has stretch. So it will stretch even bigger for a larger head. Okay. So that's what I mean. So as I'm crocheting these along, if we pause right here and get my tape measure, you can see we've crocheted a whopping, by the time I finish this row, a whopping 3 inches. I need to crochet 20 inches. So I'm going to keep repeating these rows back and forth until I get this to be as wide as 20 inches. Now, if you're making a kid beanie, the circumference that you're going to need for the hat is going to be smaller, right? Because a child size head is smaller than an adult size. So you're not going to need to do as many of these if you're making it for a child. So here we are to our last stitch. We have it identified with our stitch marker. Let's pop that guy out. Now, when I get to the very last stitch, instead of working under just the front loop, I'm going to work under the front and back loop. So I'm going to work under both. I feel like this gives it a little bit of stability here on the edge of our hat. Okay, so you don't have to, you could work under that front loop only if you want, but I prefer to work under both. Okay, so now we're ready to turn our work. I'm going to chain one and turn. And just like before, that chain of one does not count as a stitch. Okay, so right here, this chain does not count. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work half doubles all the way up. Since we just worked a half double, you will notice that we have this really cool line of texture from our half double stitch. This is the magical third loop, I like to call it. If we turn our work, this is actually the top of our stitch here where you can see the front and back loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to work under the front and back loop for this round. This line of texture that we have here will just be left behind and you won't even have to do anything special. So chain does not count. Yarn over, make our half double into that first stitch. That's our first stitch. Put back in your stitch marker and identify that as your first stitch. This will help you to keep the count as you're working your beanie back and forth on your rows. This little bump that you see here on the side, that is that turning chain. Okay, so you can kind of see it a little bit as we work along, but I don't mind it. It's fine for me. Some people don't like to do the turning chain, and you most certainly do not have to do that. Now we're going to work half doubles all the way up, working under both the front and the back loop. Okay, I'm working under both because once again, we have that line of texture on the front of our hat. And again, I know it's the front because I identified it with my stitch marker when we first got started. But you can see how those little lines are forming. Okay. Welcome in, everybody. Today we're working on a hat. I'm sorry I've missed so many of the new followers this morning. Thank you so much for being here and joining, and thank you for the follows. Katrina and Sweet SMG, thank you for being here. Welcome in. If you are new to the channel, my name is April, and I am a hobby crocheter. I come live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings at 7:30 Central Time. Right now, with daylight savings time, I stay on for an hour. So we're going to be hopping off here in the next 8 minutes or so. I hop off at 8:30. This morning we're working on a beanie. Now, don't worry if you missed out on how I started this beanie. You can always go back and rewatch over on YT. We are watching this morning both on TikTok and on YT. We're live on both. Okay. And as you look at my YT, my handle is Wheeler 8 Acres. There is a category that says videos, there is a category that says shorts, and there's a category that says live. And what you're going to look for is the live replays from when we come on TikTok and YT, and you can rewatch those. I do have to go to work at 8:30. I work full time, and I live in Alabama, and I work in Arizona. So that gives me time in the morning to come on and play with my crochet friends and have some fun. 600 610 or 61610 dog maybe. Welcome in. Good morning. I on YT, I watch my comments on my TV and it's kind of far away. So welcome in. Glad to have you here. I see everybody sharing a little mod love. How about a round of applause for our moderators this week? I could not do this without them, y'all. Such a great group of friends. They come on, they help to answer questions. They will pin what yarn I'm using. They'll help answer questions about our stitches. They are amazing. So I could not do this without our moderators. Also, I just want to give a shout out to my mom, to Mama Wheeler. Um, I will tell you, last week, Mama Wheeler was on her cruise and she was most certainly missed. So, how about a round of applause for my amazing mom? Mama Wheeler, and also I'm sure Papa Wheeler is probably there next to her watching as well. I am so lucky to have such great parents that love and support me. And I'm also kind of blessed to have a mom that is in her 70s and so hip and cool as to be on TikTok and on YT. Like, wow, right? What a great mom I have. So anyhow, love you, mom. Thank you for teaching me to crochet all those years ago. Who would have thunk it, right? Who would have thunk it? We'd be sitting here with 400 watching. Okay, we're going to finish this last stitch out here, guys, and then I'm going to call it a day. Papa is here too. All right. I saw Papa Wheeler's been out fishing, you guys. He sent me a picture a couple days ago of a really nice peacock bass that he caught. So in his spare time, he's doing woodworking and fishing and all the things. So here we are. We're to our last 5 stitches. And as we're doing these, I'm actually doing single crochets. We want the top of our hat to taper in. So this side of our hat, we're doing with single crochets. This is going to be the top of our beanie right here. When we switch to single crochets, what happens is it makes it not so bulky at the top of our hat. So the next 5 stitches, we're going to do single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's our last stitch. We had our stitch marker in here. Let's pop him out and do our last little stitch here. and I'm going to put my stitch marker in to hold my place. But friends, this is going to wrap up for today. I do have to get ready to go to work. Somebody's got to pay for all this yarn addiction I have. That's right. I said it. You know me. Anyhow, I hope you guys have enjoyed the live today and the lives all week. If you have not had an opportunity to hit the follow button or the subscribe over on YT, if you are enjoying the live, be sure and do that so you can find me again in the future. We're going to be back next week on Tuesday morning at 7:30 Central Time. And we're going to be working on more beanies next week. We'll probably be working on more baby blankets. Before I go, let me show you. This is another beanie I've got working, guys. Look at this pretty yarn. Ooh la la. I love it. Um, the baby blanket, guys, that we worked on yesterday, I wanted to show you where I'm at with this. I'll probably have an update for you on this one next week. But I've actually come back and I've added additional rows of our third loop magic that we were doing yesterday, and I've kind of framed up the edge of the baby blanket even more. Doesn't that look cool? So anyhow, I wanted to show you guys that for those that were watching this week as I've been working on the baby blanket. So anyhow, y'all, um, thank you all so much for all of the follows, all of the shares, likes. Thank you. A special shout out to all of our fabulous moderators. Again, I really appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Stay warm. And definitely, I will see you all again next week on Tuesday. Um, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye for now.